Hi friends, I'm here to read you the next two chapters of Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. Chapter 54. On the first floor, Charles was at a long last video chat with his uncle, James Willoughby III, the Librarian of Congress, who had finally shown up for the Ask an Expert call. Sorry for the delay, Charles. That's okay, Uncle Jimmy, Charles said, straining to smile and not scream. The time is now 11 a.m., announced the annoyingly placid lady in the ceiling. This game will end in 1 hour. Charles had to hustle. Sir, I know you're a very important and very busy man, so I just have one quick question. If I were a book on true crime in the state of Ohio, where would you shelve me? Library of Congress classification? No, sir, the Dewey Decimal. Ah, easy. 364.1. What comes after the 1 will depend, of course, on how many books a library. Charles didn't stick around to hear the rest of his uncle's answer. He took off running for the closest spiral staircase up to the second floor. As he ascended the steps, two at a time, he saw Kyle Keeley and his entire entourage running down a staircase from the third floor. Charles reached the second floor balcony first. He darted around the bend, past the door to the 500s room to the 400s. Keeley and his crew were coming from the opposite direction, but Charles reached the door to the 300s room before them. He swiped his library card, yanked on the handle, and dashed into the room. He scanned the shelves and headed to his right. He heard Keeley enter the room. Glancing over his shoulder, Charles saw Keeley go left. Charles dashed up an aisle between the bookshelves. He read the number at the end of each row of shelves, 310, 320, 330. One of those robots with the book baskets came rumbling across his path, but Charles was able to dodge it. 340, 350. Keeley's footsteps pounded up the passageway on the other side of the shelving units to his left. In the middle of the 300s room, they entered an open space with a judge's bench and witness box. Charles was getting closer to the true crime section, but so was Kyle. Charles saw that Keeley read something off his palm. He had the whole call number. It was time to change tactics. Charles hung back and let Keeley take the lead. Kyle rushed toward a bookcase. Charles sprinted after him. Got it, Kyle shouted as he reached for a book on the shelf. But before he completely pulled it out, Charles grabbed hold of the book too. They both yanked it off the shelf. Kyle had the spine and Charles had hold of the top. They tugged it back and forth. While they wrestled with the book, Keeley's teammates caught up to them. Careful, Kyle, said Sierra Russell. Don't hurt the book. Charles grinned. Keeley, the sentimental sap, was listening to the silly, bookish girl and easing up on his grip, giving Charles his chance. He body-checked Keeley, slammed into him with his shoulder, sent him flying, and the book tumbling. Charles snatched it off the floor. He had the book. He had quickly flipped through the table of contents, saw Chapter 11 was about a robbery at the Gold Leaf Bank in Alexandriaville. He knew he'd won the game. Charles used his free hand to slap an L on his forehead. Loser, he sneered at Kyle. A tiger roared, a whistle blew, and Mr. Lemoncello entered the room, accompanied by Clarence Clement and what looked like a rare Bengal tiger. Mr. Chiltington? Charles smiled. He knew Mr. Lemoncello was about to congratulate him for defying the odds and winning the game. He had single-handedly defeated Kyle Keeley's entire team. Yes, sir, Mr. Lemoncello. Do you remember Dr. Zinchenko's #1 rule? You bet, sir. No food or drink in the book cafe. No, said Mr. Lemoncello, touching the tip of his nose and making a buzzer noise. Dr. Z, tell him what he should have said. Dr. Zinchenko's voice poured over the ceiling speakers. Be gentle with each other and, most especially, the library books and exhibits. I know, said Charles. That's why I had to stop Kyle Keeley. He was ready to rip the cover off of this poor book. Heck, sir, everybody at school knows that Kyle Keeley is a maniac. He'll do anything to win a game. Mr. Lemoncello turned to Keeley. Is that true, Kyle? Would you actually destroy the property if it stood between you and your prize? Well, sir, Kyle was stammering. The fool didn't know how to lie. Charles quickly opened the book to Chapter 11 and slipped in his library card to bookmark the location. You should ask Keeley about the window that he broke, sir. Mr. Lemoncello turned his face to Charles again. The window? Yes, sir. The whole school heard about it. See, Kyle Keeley and his two brothers were playing some sort of wild scavenger hunt game, and Mr. Lemoncello pointed to the book. That's clever. You use your library card as a bookmark? Yes, sir, I sure do, said Charles, turning on the charm. Of course, I can't take full credit for doing such a clever idea. On Friday night, I saw Sierra Russell doing it, and you told Andrew Peckelman to borrow her card. Charles blinked several times. I beg your pardon? You broke Dr. Zinchenko's #1 rule. You were not gentle with your teammate Andrew. In fact, you bullied him into stealing Miss Russell's library card, which you knew she always used as a bookmark. No, sir, I did not. Yes, Charles, you did. Mr. Lemoncello touched his right ear. In fact, Dr. Zinchenko has spent the past few hours combing through security tapes, and guess what she found? Charles heard his own voice ringing out of the ceiling speakers. Have you noticed what Sierra Russell uses for a bookmark? No. That was Andrew, said Mr. Lemoncello. This is you again. Her library card, which of course doubles as a key card for meeting room B. Find a way to borrow it. You told Andrew to steal Sierra's library card. How could you record that, said Charles. I was whispering, and I have very good microphones. You're done, Charles. Dr. Zinchenko, tell our departing guest what he has just won. Absolutely nothing, said the voice of the Russian librarian. Please tell Mr. L that please, Mr. L, tell Charles the correct answer to the final pictogram. Ah, yes. Mr. Lemoncello reached into his back pocket and pulled out a 4x4 card and showed it to Charles. Charles stood there, fuming. Anyone care to help Charles out? Said Kyle. Is it 6-eat? You are very close, said Mr. Lemoncello. There was a pause, and then Haley laughed. Did it come after the football player? Yeah, said Charles. So? Andrew was right all along, said Haley. The football player clue wasn't the past. It was 19. Mr. Lemoncello shifted into his game show voice. So, Haley Daly, would you care to solve the puzzle? Sure. You can walk out the way the bandits crawled in 1968. I don't get it, said Charles. 1968, said Akimi. You know, 1968? Ah, yes, said Mr. Lemoncello. The year from the mix-up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankenweiler won the Newbery Medal for excellence in children's literature. Another clue you completely missed, Charles. Wow, said Miguel, and I thought Chiltingtons never lose. There's a first time for everything, said Lemoncello. Clarence Clement, kindly escort young Mr. Chiltington from the building. Bye-bye, said Akimi. There goes this game's biggest loser. Chapter 55. Open it, Akimi said to Kyle. We only have like 40 minutes to figure out how Loblolly and the Dandy Bandits crawled into the bank back in 1968. Kyle flipped through the True Crime Ohio to the place where Charles had slipped his bookmark. Well, said Miguel, Chapter 11, the Dandy Bandits burrow into a bank vault. Even though thou shalt not steal, said Akimi. And I'll bet they crawled in, right, said Haley. The clever thieves, Kyle read from his book, took up residence in an abandoned dress factory next door to the Gold Leaf Bank and spent weeks tunneling in from the basement into the bank vault. Which, said Miguel, according to those old blueprints I found, was down where the book sorting machine is now. That explains the first clue, said Kyle. The book title was Get to Know Your Local Library. Dr. Zinchenko meant we needed to get to know this library. This also explains why she wanted us to read those Sherlock Holmes stories. The Adventure of the Red-Headed League, said Sierra, the story about robbers tunneling into a bank from the building next door. Kyle nodded. Dr. Zinchenko told me that she had just reread it. I'll bet that's where she got the idea for this whole game. Hey, Charles should have stuck with crawling through sewers like he did in that video game, joked Miguel. He might have found the Dandy Bandits tunnel before we did. Come on, you guys, said Haley. We need to go back in the basement. I'm coming with you, said Mr. Lemoncello. I just have to see how this story ends. Clutching the true crime book against his chest, Kyle led the way down to the stacks. Why are you bringing that book? Asked Akimi. We'll put it on the conveyor belt thing, Kyle explained. Whatever basket the scanner sends it to, I'm guessing that's where we'll find out our black square, our shortcut out of the library. Exactly. As the team trooped down the steps into the basement, Mr. Lemoncello turned to Kyle and said, So, Mr. Keeley, did you have fun this weekend? Yeah. Good, congratulations. Miss Hughes, it seems you have already won. Akimi sort of blushed. What do you mean? Asked Kyle. In her essay, your extremely good friend wrote, and I quote, I want to see the new library so I can tell my friend Kyle Keeley how cool it is. You wrote your essay about me? Maybe, mumbled Akimi. Wow, said Kyle, no one's ever done that before. Well, no one's ever going to do it again if you blow up our chance at winning this thing. So can we please stop yakking and find our way out of here? Works for me. Warning, said the calm voice in the ceiling speakers. This game will terminate in 30 minutes. Everybody moved a little bit faster. Fortunately, when the group reached the basement, the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves didn't start sliding into another maze formation. The automatic book sorter is straight up this path near the far wall, said Kyle. They made it to the conveyor belt. From what I remember from the old blueprint, said Miguel, the vault was right here, at the same spot as this machine. Okay, you guys, said Kyle. Whatever robo-basket this book ends up in is probably sitting right on top of the entrance to the tunnel. Here goes everything. Kyle placed the True Crime Ohio into the array of crisscrossing beams. Nothing happened. What's going on? Cried Miguel. Why isn't it working? Maybe this book isn't heavy enough? Kyle pushed down the cover of the book a bit. Still nothing. They stared dumbfounded at the book sitting on the immobile belt. It wouldn't stop moving yesterday, muttered Haley. That's Ada, cried Akini. She hurried to the wall and flipped the emergency shut-off switch back to the on position. Several red laser scanners sprang to life in the book drop slot. Under the book drop slot, the belt started moving, slowly. The single book worked its way down the line like a candy bar on a wrapping machine. When it reached the third robo-basket from the end, a set of rollers popped up and shunted the book off to the side of the waiting wire basket. Into the waiting wire basket. The conveyor belt stopped rolling. The robo-cart rolled away. Nothing else happened. That's it? Warning, said the calm voice. This game will terminate in 20 minutes. It didn't work, said Haley. We're toast, said Akimi. Wait, said Kyle, pointing to a square tile on the floor where the robo-basket had been. It was glowing, like one of those touchscreen computers in the desks upstairs. It says, Howdy, do you like fun games? Get ready. Excellent, Akimi giggled. Then she and Kyle cracked up, remembering the box tops from their first puzzle in the boardroom on Saturday morning. Now it says we're going to get an anagram, said Kyle. My favorite kind of cookie, said Mr. Lemoncello. Okay, everybody, said Kyle. Gather around, get ready. Kyle, Akimi, Sierra, Miguel, and Haley knelt on the floor in a circle around the square. Mr. Lemoncello hovered behind them. Here we go, said Kyle as the game instructions scrolled across the screen. Give me 16 words made from these 16 letters in 60 seconds or less. A 60-second clock popped up on the bottom of the screen, and then a 4x4 boggle jumble of letters. Luigi L. Lemoncello, mumbled Kyle. The 60-second clock started ticking down. Sierra shouted out, Lemon, and a ding-song sounded from the speaker above. The 5 teammates started shouting random words. Cello, Eon, Elm, Lion, Mole, Leg, Oil. 30 seconds left, said Mr. Lemoncello. 1, Cell, Cone, Lone, Glen, Lime, Mole. We already said that. Melon. That's 15, said the voice in the ceiling. 10 seconds left. Anybody? 5, 4. Colonel, shouted Haley. The computer screen flashed congratulations and winners. Somewhere a game show audience cheered. Fireworks rockets whistled through the air, and several geese honked out a hooray. Please stand back, said the soothing voice in the ceiling. Kyle and his teammates did as they were told. Warning, the voice continued, this game will terminate in 15 minutes. We still need to get out, you guys, said Akimi. Hurry, Floor, do something. The 8 tiles surrounding the glowing tablet also started to glow. First yellow, then orange, then purple. Our secret square, said Akimi. There was a series of clicks, and the tiles began folding up on themselves and retracting into the floor, opening up like an origami trapdoor. Look, said Haley, there's steps. Mr. Lemoncello peered down into the hole at the well-lit staircase and tunnel. My, Dr. Zinchenko has certainly cleaned things up since Mr. Loblolly was here. Of course she did, said Haley, so we can walk out the way the bandits crawled in 1968. Hurry, everybody, said Mr. Lemoncello. I don't want to be late to my own birthday party.